Tractate Sanhedrin, page 47, the subject of burial, which is obviously part of the way of life. It's the core subject of today. First question is, the idea of burying the deceased is biblical or it's rabbinic? Another important question is Trumat Evarim, meaning donation of kidney or donation of part of a body. Is that a right and obligations in a case of need or not? Is that something that is in a conjunction of Jewish law or not? Indirect question in some cases, cremation. Is that something that even a consideration or totally not? It's a famous story about Rabbi of Brisk, whose name is Reb Velvele of Brisk. The story goes that he was one of those that strongly opposed any type of temptation or dealing with endeavor, not only for scientific reason, but any form, if it's not a urgent, immediate needs in a rare circumstance, and they try to separate it between people who are observant and not observant, and he opposed it, and he said, you never know when you need, and you never know if that donation and what is right, what is not. In short, what the notion that he tried to convey, and many others, is we have to ask a prominent specialist, special rabbi that specialize in this, because these type of questions are one of those hypersensitive questions that have a lot of consequences. I think in our generation, Rabbi David Feinstein of New York is one of the prominent rabbi that can answer. I remember years back when I went to the Rosh Yeshiva of Ner Israel in Baltimore, of Aaron Feldman, he sent me to Rabbi Feinstein with those complicated questions that occurred in my previous community. Anyway, we'll start on page 46b, 18 lines from the bottom of the page. Ibayalu kvura mishum bizyonahu o mishum kapara. The idea of burying the deceased, is that because of kind of denigration of the body? You see the deceased body and you don't bury it, so it's the deceased should be suffer the disgrace of being exposed as his body begins to decompose. Or you say that it's the atonements, which is part of, we believe that by being the physical life being taken, the spirit taken from the body, it's achieving atonement by being returned to the ground from which the body was formed. That's the way Rashi explained. But other Mefarshim, you see the Rabbeinu Nissim, the Ran, and others, they say that it's more symbolic, meaning many people, unfortunately, during the lifetime, they feel control. I'm in control of my estate. I'm in control of other people sometimes. I'm in control of whatever I have. There's so many people in the narcissistic attitude toward life or toward estate. And the moment the person is no longer among the living, is basically kind of taking away the power that people in their imaginations have. So the argument of the Ran tried to say that it's basically symbolic. We obviously, the way we derive the Torah, we're not allowed to leave the body alone, even for those who are among our enemies. It's still a notion of importance of burial. But anyway, lemay nafka mina. What exactly the difference, the practical difference that we have, the reason that the burial is necessary? The Amar, because the deceased said, unfortunately it happens, the people try to honor the people on the deathbed, and the people who ask the last testament, the last week of their life. The person, before he passed away, he said, Lo be'inan delikveru alahu gavra. So he asked, in euphemism, he said that the person, but it means himself, I don't want to be buried. Again, unfortunately, in my 22 years serving communities, I can attest in the 3 different communities that I serve that there are always people like that. They want to be cremated, and they don't want to be buried, etc. And this is one of those very painful end of life question. You have to deal as a spiritual leader of community with people. So anyway, the question is how you treat it. למאי נפקא מינה, לא בעינן לקברו לה וגברה, היא אמרת משום ביזיונהו, לא כל כמיני. Here's the difference. If you tell me that the whole reason it's because you don't want to create any form of disgrace, so it is not in his power to waive his own burial as his family shares in the disgrace, because obviously it's not only the decomposition of the body but also the odor, the feeling, it's in a way a person does not have the power to forgive of his disgrace after he is no longer among the living, because it's not only himself, it's also the immediate family as well, because the Ktav Sofer explained in his responsa that everyone feels shame. The Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, the great early Kabbalist and sage, he explained that if you affecting other people, you do not have the power to forgive any disgrace that post living, meaning he explained in the book called Torah Adam that the moment that it affects other people is no longer in your power. So the derivative, it means that Maram Rothenburg and others said that it's not just person himself. ואי אמרת משום כפרה הוא הלא אמר בעינה כפרה. But if you tell me that the whole reason is for atonements, he doesn't ask. Says, I do not want atonement, which with regard to himself, one should be able to do as he wishes. Which is like saying, I don't want to be atoned. Rashi said that it's, as we said, that it's the bizayon lakrovim, that the relatives be disgraced. But in a Meshech Chochmah, in the interpretation of the Torah, Book of Dvarim, chapter 32, he said what Asaf said in Tehillim Ayin Zayin, Psalm 79, שפכו ליבם כמים סביבות ירושלים ואין קובר. They spill the blood around Yerushalayim and is no burial. And then the pasuk said, "Al tizkor lanu avonot rishonim." Please, the Almighty, do not recall, do not remember our earlier mistake, our early sin. Why? Because it was a tremendous death around the city of Yerushalayim at that time, and it wasn't proper burial for all those corpses. So it was a great sorrow, a great disgrace to see bodies that decompose without burial, and obviously we call it, according to Meshech Chochmah too, that is bizyonat dechayhu, that is disgrace for the living. So we ask the survivor, the Almighty will not remember, not judge us for those mistakes of leaving those bodies, because in a sense we're already atoned by being, as you know the story of Beitar, for example, our people not allowed by the Romans to bury our deceased. So we have kapara, we have atonement just by being so aggravated and not be able to partake of proper burial. The two in Yoreh De'ah, Shin Memchet 348, explains that the key is more kind of the living disgrace, that the deceased was not buried. But Maharam Shik in Yoreh De'ah, it's one of those responsa, and Shin Mem Zayin said that the whole idea of making some type of researches of a corpse, of bodies, of the endeavor, we can say that it's all a violation of Torah law, because even you need it for study medicine is a problematic, because the nivul hamet bizayon lechol haolam. He says that the denigration of a body, that it's decomposed and not buried properly, is a disgrace for the whole world, and therefore neither the person nor his relative, according to Marab Shif, has the authority of the right over that, because in a way the world, or you can say God, do not forgive. In that sense, again, here we enter the big Jewish thought. The body was given to us temporarily to watch over. In that sense, we don't own our bodies. It's almost like the army used to joke, and they said if a soldier has committed suicide, he will be sued for injuring army's equipment. So in that sense, since the body belongs to Almighty and the world been disgraced and hurt, so therefore it's exceeded the right. You see that in many places. You see it Minchat Yitzchak, Diane Weiss, Chelek Hey, and many more, dealing with the issue of halachic problematic of nituchei meitim, dealing with a corpse by any means of researchers and more. So basically we still ask the question, the reason that we require burial, it's because of disgrace or because of atonements? Tashma midi ikavur tzadikei. We see many stories in the Torah. Not only, the rabbi said, those people who buried in the Torah like our ancestors, but also the continuation, the perpetuation of that notion of having a righteous people being buried respectfully to this very day. So they said, V'i amart mishum kaparat tzadikei lechaparat tzrichei. If you tell me that the whole notion is to atone for the sins, since we said that the righteous people are righteous, so if they don't need, they basically do not need this notion of atonements. So the Gemara said, "In dechtiv Adam en tzadik ba'aretz asher aseh tov v'lo yechta." King Solomon said in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 7, that there is no such a thing. I just translated the word from the Koran edition. They said, "For there is no righteous person on earth who does good and never sins." So even the righteous need atonement for the few sins that they committed over the course of their lifetime. So there's a lot of write-up in the rabbinic writings. Why? I would like to just give one of them. The late Rabbi Yashiv, one of my mentors and teachers, who was merited not only to die at his advanced age, he was more than 100 years old, but he also left hundreds of children and grandchildren and many thousands of students. So he said that the concern, the key reason nowadays for burial is not to permit or not to give any temptation of using the physical body of the deceased by any means to any purposes. But he says that's just one of the reasons why we need to bury it. Or Chaim HaKadosh, Rabbeinu Chaim ben Atar, the great Sephardic rabbi of the past generation, he explains the last Torah portion of the Torah is described the Moshe Rabbeinu end of life, Moses' death. And the Torah used the term Vezot habracha asher berach Moshe. This is the blessing that Moses blessed, Ish ha-Elohim, the man of God. So he asked a question, how come they used that term only for Moses? And he said, only for Moses is basically above the Midat Hadin, above the heavenly tribune of judgment. Meaning even the biblical terms of righteousness, all the rest was below, which is basically very much in conjunction to this quote from Ecclesiastic, So there's no such a thing that a person not committed some sin. The only one in that sense was Moses, that the God, again in our euphemism, in our language, God buried him and he was Isha Elokim. Other than that, there are even few, but there are some sins that partake of the righteous tzaddikim. Tashma, here we're dealing with the evil king among Israel, whose name is Yerovam ben Nevat. He was instigator, and it was a person that divided our people. So in the first book of Kings, chapter 14, they said, "Vesafdulo kol Yisrael vekavru oto." So they said that all the Israel basically give a eulogy and buried him. So the sages explain in Moed Katan, page 28, you see it in other places as well, that he was a very wicked person. V'at amart ki echad etehev lekapara, if you tell me that you create an atonement for his sin by burying, hanachnam elikavru, so it means that his family members should be buried, Rashi said. So they also have the atonements. So they said, hide the tzadiku aviyah. In the Tanakh was a righteous, as we explained earlier. Tehevele kapara. So he have these kind of atonements by burial. Hanach lo lehevelehu kapara. But the family members of Yerovam, that they are absolutely at least wicked, you can call them even evil if you read the text, so they do not have la lehevu kapara, so they should not achieve atonements even in death. And you see a lot of rabbinic writings that even in some cases death will not atone. I always, when I ask those questions about afterlife, I use the term of Nazis. Obviously there are certain human that reach a below human level, and therefore even the death cannot atone for the sins. So even we have the concept of afterlife, and they have a concept of heavenly tributes, and they have the concept of people needs to go to a process of cleansing, but there are certain souls that cannot. Anyway, the late Sar Shalom of Belz, the great Hasidic Rebbe of Belz, asked a question. Since there's a lot of Jewish writing and Jewish thought about purchasing a burial plot during a person's lifetime, some say that it's even segula, it's even a good idea to for long life. So how come Abraham purchased Sarah graveside only after her passing? So he goes at length to explain that Abraham thought of himself the same as Hanoch. The Torah described about Enoch, the Hanoch, that he was so spiritual, so righteous, so that God took him. And it's a big write-up what exactly happened. But after Sarah passed away, Abraham realized in his level of prophecy that he needs to purchase a gravesite. And he said, even in his personal note, his wife died young, the Belzerov wife, whose name is Malka. And his eulogy called Malki Tzedek, the same verse in the book of Bereshit. He says, Melech Shalom, which is the representative of the good world and peace. So he cried out and he says, if I was able to revivify her life, obviously I will do it. But he said that I'm thinking about Klal Israel, about the whole of our people, why the Almighty did not revivify their souls yet, even is a promise in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 37, to do so. So, in a sense, the Khatam Sofer elaborates, and he said that when it's come to Abraham Avinu alav shalom, our forefather Abraham, he was higher than Hanoch, because Hanoch was, in a sense, was the level that man of God. Abraham, they call him Nesi Elokim ata betochenu, you are among us, the righteous person, which is apparently you appear or you look or you behave or you communicate like one of us, yet you lift us to your level, you don't step to our level. So that's basically the Khatam Sofer explained that that's highest level than Hanoch. Anyway, so they said, Tashma, here is the prophecy of Jeremiah in regards to this people, the city of Anatot, that they are evil people. So they said in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 16, verse 4, Lo yisafdu velo yikavru, that those people should not have eulogy and should not be buried. So if you tell me that the whole purpose of burial is to atone for the sins, so it should be that those wicked people should be buried in order for them to atone. So the question is, why the Almighty decreed that these people should not be buried? So it means maybe the other way around, that the whole purpose of burial is basically the disgrace, as we explained earlier. So therefore, the Almighty put a special enactment, a special decree, that those evil people will not be buried, because in a sense God wants them to have bizayon, to have denegations. The lo tehevelehu kapara. So the Gemara answer basically that they don't have any, not achieve atonement. So you see here that the whole question we ask about the burial is necessary in order to prevent disgrace or achieve atonement, we didn't solve that question yet. Rabbeinu Hananel said that even that it's unsolved, we hold that is an obligation, and that's basically the way that we rule the halacha, that there is an obligation. That's the famous Rambam Ilchot Avelut chapter 12, that it's a total obligation to bury. The Ramban in Torat Adam, in one of his books, explains that Sfeika deoraita lechumra, that if you are not sure if it's a biblical or rabbinic, you go lechumra, you go stringent. But there are those who said, you see it in Lechem Mishneh, you see it in Achiezer, you see it in others, that it's the Rabbanan, that it's rabbinic. Anyway, Ibaya Leu. They ask a question. Hespeida. This is so popular here. People give eulogy. So the question is, if we zoom in by the halacha, the whole concept of people give eulogy, deliver, is that for the honor of the living relatives of the deceased, or deliver in honor of the dead? Yekara dechayehu or yekara deshachavei havu. You know, I can't help but remind me of one of the famous tale. It was a fellow, a new rabbi of the community, and he has a funeral. It's a large audience, and he was honest. He stood on the stage on the bima, and he said, on the chapel, and he said to a very large crowd, he said, I don't know the deceased. If anyone can say something, I'll appreciate it, because my part is just to say some prayer. And it was total silence. Then the rabbis asked again. No one said anything. And imagine this place packed of many hundreds of people. And then he said, okay, this is the last call, the third time. If someone have something to say about the deceased, they're welcome to say it. If not, then I have no choice. I'll just say some prayers and will be done by the funeral service. So as a man stood up from the very last row, and he said, Rabbi, his brother was much worse than him. So anyway, the whole idea of giving eulogy is that in honor of the living or in honor of the deceased. There is a notion based on the Rambam in Chot Avelut that it says, Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love thy fellow as thyself, that's part of Gmilut Chasadim. But again, the big question is, the Rambam have the notion of rabbinic law. Lemay nafka mina, what's really different? If a person said, Amar lot tispedu la'u gavra, if a person asks not to have eulogy, which have some people that ask for that don't want to do eulogies in honor of their lives, so do we have to respect, we have to follow that honor or not? the other Ramah said that basically it appears that we should listen to him. In Namei la'apuke miyorshim. Another option is that they to collect the eulogy's fee from the heirs, which is, if the eulogy is in honor of the dead, it's possible to collect this fee from his heir even against their will, but if it is to honor the living, they are able to forego this honor. Again, the Aruch HaShulchan in Yoreh De'ah Shin Mem Dalet have a big idea that do we have to hire professional people to do eulogy or not? Especially there's a big write-up in rabbinic writing, if you exaggerate the truth or you say things, attribute to people that it's not really truth, that's have the reverse result. The Rabbi Shlomo Eiger in the Sefer Eikarim, in Erech Onen, he explains that what his father, the late Rabbi Akiva Eiger, is he asked that if a person said in his tzava'ah, in his will, not to do hesped, not to do eulogy, you should, if we listen to him or not. So here we said Yekara de Shachvehu, that's the honor of the deceased. But if he asks not to do it, we should respect that. But he holds that when it's come to Talmid Chacham Shemachar al Kvodo, if the person is a Torah scholar, it's not so simple, because do you basically have attribute to the deceased, or it's basically denigrating the respect for the deceased, especially if he's a Talmid Chacham. So I just want to read to you one line in Hebrew for those who understand Hebrew, because I think it carries a lot of important point. And again, it's from the Rambam, but you see it also in Sefer Eikarim. He said, "Be'adam gadol," if it was a great Torah scholar, "asher kol pinat haaretz hayu mechabdim umenas'im oto," where people respected him so much during his lifetime. "Vayu kulam charedim lekol dvaro." Havei he'eder ha'esped bizayon gadol shel hachaim. If you withhold giving a eulogy, you have a great disgrace or great denigration of the living. Velo kol keminel imchol kvodam. So in short, it's almost like saying they have no right to ask. It's a responsa called tshuva me'ahava. It's one of the well-respected responsa book he brings from his Rebbe, the Nudabi Yehuda, the great rabbi of Prague, that he did a hesped, he did the eulogy for the Pnei Yoshua, even he asked not to do it. So you see in Pitchei Teshuva, in Shin Mem Dalet, in 344 chapter Pitchei Teshuva, he explained way more, but the Rabbi Akiva Eiger, I don't want to spend too much time on this, in Yoreh De'ah, in again Shin Dalet Mem 344 chapter, have a big discussion if the whole, which we call the whole business of expressing of funeral business, is that Yekara de Chayei or Yekara de Shichvei, is that in honor of the living or honor of the deceased? He left it in Tzarich Iyun, left it unsolved. Anyway, Tashma. So we try to bring a proof to that point. They said about Abraham and Sarah in the book of Bereshit, chapter 23. They said, Vayavo Abraham, and Abraham came in, and as you know, the Torah is a blueprint of life and the living Torah, and they teach us the manner of which we should follow. So they said, Vayavo Abraham lispod lesara velivkota. So Abraham went there and he came to eulogize his wife Sarah and weep over her. Here you have a clear indication that the whole funeral of Sarah was delayed because Abraham needed to come from kind of far away city of Beersheba to Hebron to eulogize his wife Sarah. So the Hamart, because he was in the place of binding Isaac and everything. So if you tell me that the mitzvah of hesped, the mitzvah of eulogizing, mishum yikara dechayehu, is that in honor of the relative of the living, meaning the living relative of the deceased, mishum dekara de Avraham mashhula lesara. So you tell me because you want to honor Abraham, you delay the funeral of Sarah, which again, this is, even we have kind of understanding that is a mitzvah to do a eulogy, but it's kind of right there before burial, but so it means that it's in honor of the deceased, not in honor of the living. Otherwise, why you need to delay the burial of Sarah? So the Gemara rejected and said, Sarah gufa nichala. Sarah herself wanted, because she was so dedicated and devoted to her husband Abraham, she wants to have his honor among the living, and that she love him and care for his derech eretz and kavod, his honor, in such a level that she was okay to delay her funeral, even it's kind of not in the spirit of the way we take the Jewish law, but we cannot derive from that exception story a general rule when it's come to honor the deceased. Tashma. Here we go back to the story of Aviyah, the son of Yerovam. Again, first book of Kings, chapter 14. V'safdu lo kol Yisrael v'kavru oto. They said all Israelis eulogized him and buried him, which means here you have Achiyah Shiloni that he prophesied to the house of Yerovam that the Aviyah received a good eulogy at the time of passing. As we said, one of the Hasidic rabbis, the Toldot Yaakov Yosef, said that Achiyah Shiloni used to study with the Baal Shem Tov. Anyway, V'i Amart, if you tell me the reason for the eulogy, Mishum Yekara Dechayehu, that it means in order of the to honor the living, which is the living relatives of the deceased, you have a question, Hanach B'nei Yekara Ninhu. So these people, the relative of Aviyah, they deserve such an honor because the entire house of Yerovam were wicked. Even you see it in the text, so why they deserve honor? So they said, Nichalu letzadikaya demeikayak rebehu in shei. So they said that the righteous people, it's a satisfactory for to the righteous people when other people are honored through them. Since that is their wish, they are eulogized even if the wicked relatives are honored as the result. That's the way the Rabbeinu Nisim said, even not only the righteous. Tashma, lo yisafdu velo yikavru. So that's what we said in the people of Anatol, that Jeremiah said in a very strong sentence, they shall not eulogize, nor shall be buried. It's in a sense, Jeremiah not only prognosticated, but he also transmitted the word of the Lord, that they should not receive eulogy upon their passing, because they are so evil. So it means, in a sense, again, that's in Kvod Hamet, that is in honor of the deceased. That's the reason why God withheld from the people of Anatot, the wicked people of Anatot. Otherwise, if it's in honor of the living, why God withheld that to Jeremiah? So he said, Lo nichal et tzadikaya dimiyakrei birshi'ah. It is not satisfactory to the righteous people when they are honored through the wicked. So therefore, they prefer that the eulogy not be delivered for the wicked relatives. Tashma. So that's a word that the prophet Jeremiah said to the king Tzidkiyahu, book of Jeremiah, chapter 34, verse 5. Beshalom tamut. So he said, you shall die in peace. And he said, ובמשרפות אבותיך המלכים הראשונים אשר היו לפניך. And he said that the burning of your father, the former kings that were before you, ישרפו לך, they shall make a burning for you, והוי אדון יספדו לך, and they will eulogize you saying, ah, master. So here, this is the word to the last king of Judea, the Tzidkiah. So at the time that the Babylon conquered the kingdom of Judea kingdom, so here the prophet comfort the last king Tzidkiah. It is said that he is going to lose during the war, but he promised him that he will not die in the hand of the Babylon, but die in a sense of natural death. That is used the word beshalom, which means you die, you rest in peace. And they were burning his possessions in a way that they used to do in those days in honor of the king. So that's the idea, hoi adon, that it's an expression of respect. And if you tell me that the whole purpose of eulogy is in honor of the living relative of the deceased, what's the difference does it make for him if he is eulogized? So they said, Hacheka Amarli. The truth is, when the prophet gave the word of comfort to Tzidkiah HaMelech, he meant to say, Li karu bech Yisrael ki echad mityakrei be'av hatach. So he said, since you are not just the average person, you are the king of the Jewish people. So Jeremiah said to Tzidkiah, enjoy the thought that the nation of Israel shall be honored through you at your funeral, as they were honored through your ancestors at their funerals. So that's the idea of hoi adon, that the nation will be honored in his passing. Page 47. So you see, so far we didn't solve the problem. The whole idea of eulogy or funeral service and all the big talk, is that for the living and for the deceased? Again, I can attest to the fact that I can write this big heavy book over funeral services, which again, it's not the time, but you see people behaviors in that time, the manner of which people talk, the communication within the families and the behavior. Anyway, Tashma. So we bring a source from the book of Tehillim, Psalm chapter 15. Nivze be'enav nim'as. So here the prophet bring 11 traits that how a person after his passing, his soul will be honored. And they said here that one of them is that in his eyes a veiled person despise, but he honor them that fear the Lord. So it means Zetz Chizkiyahu Melech Yehuda shegirer atzmot achiv al mita shel chavalim. This example from Chizkiah, who is the king of Judah, who dragged the bones of his father, the king Achaz, who was a wicked king, on a bear made of ropes. And he did not bury Achaz in a manner of befitting a king, in order to disgrace him for his sinful conduct. So this is a story not just as an individual, but Achaz, a wicked king, was idol worshipping, and you read more in the second book of Kings, chapter 16. So therefore, it's a big write-up what exactly happened and how it happens. But in short, the least, it wasn't the burial for the proper burial for kings. So the big question is, he did all of that, if he does that in honor of the living, so why Chizkiyahu was a righteous man, righteous king, need to act in this type of way that brought disgrace upon himself and all the Jewish people to do such a thing to the deceased? So the Gemara rejected and said, no, he did it on purpose. Opposite, because he cared for his late father who was very evil. So Chizkiah did it so his father will achieve atonements for his sin through that particular disgrace of act of burial. So even again, it's the big discussion what exactly the right or the notion that people does that. Some said, like the Netziv, that everyone present will be disgraced, or people do teshuva or other reasons. So I saw in my brother-in-law book, Rabbi Mandelbaum, it's called Daf al Daf, he brought Shut Mahardach. And Shut Mahardach have a big discussion over someone who basically converted to other faith group, and then he was killed by robbers, and the question is, he wasn't buried yet, and his son asked about saying Kaddish for him, if he should or should not say Kaddish for him. Because let's face it, if a person converts and he's now out of Jewish faith, it's a big question by halacha, how you not only the buried that obviously cannot be buried among others in the regular cemetery, but if even up beyond the fence, but when it's come to saying Kaddish is another question. So he tried to bring proof from our story of Chizkiah that because he did so at the funeral of his father, even that Achaz was meshumad le'achis, that he did this act of rebelliousness against that God, not only as an individual but also as a king, and he did all the wrong thing against God's will. The sons did all of that, which is he pulled out his bond after his passing in order to create a atonement for his sin, and the sages agree, Chachamim hodulu al zeh, the sages agree with him with that. So otherwise the sages will not agree, but not everyone agreed. He brought, my brother-in-law Rabbi Mandelbaum, he brought a Shelot v'Tshuvot Ma'arash HaLevi, the responsa, that he said that here we have to differentiate between derech bizayon, if you do it in a sense of disgrace, to legarer atzmot aviv, that you carry, you pull the bone of the father, but versus if a person does that derech kavod, he just say the mourner's kaddish. So anyway, Mumar leteavon, if someone did it just out of his weakness or desires, here he said that you can say Kaddish, but not everyone agree with that. You see more on the Rabbeinu Moshe Isserlich, Rema, in Yoreh De'ah, Shin Ayin Vav 376, that he hold that it's only if he was killed by the idolaters that therefore it's an act of atonements, but otherwise not. So the question is, Umishum kapara de'avu hamashul likara liYisrael. So think about it, because okay, he's a righteous king and he wants to have atonements for his father who was an evil king, so you basically delay the whole honor of the nation of Israel because it's their king. So they said, Yisrael gufayu nichalu demachle yikaru legabei. Says no, the nation of Israel themselves, it's okay, satisfactory to forego the honor for him in order for the former king achieve atonements for all of his terrible sins. And Tosfot Chachmei Anglia elaborates that it's basically the effect of his action to the whole reputation of a nation. So in a sense, it was the right thing to do. Tashma. So here we have another suggestion. Amar lahem, so before he died, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said to his students, to his disciples, Al tispeduni ba'ayarot, do not eulogize me in a small town that you pass as you take my body out for funeral, for burial, but eulogize me only in the largest cities. If you tell me that the whole notion is in honor of the living, what Rabbi Yehuda Nasi gain out of that for saying that you should have a large crowd? So it's even is honor of the people who are living, But still, so they said, כסבר להתייקר בישראל תפי. He thought that it's not just honor of him as the great person, but because he was the Nasi, he was the head leader of the Jewish people, it will be a kind of great honor for the whole community to get together and eulogize him properly in the large city. So it's kind of more taking care of the community needs and the community honors than himself, and that's the reason why he asked. Tashma. Now we bring a braita, we learned in the previous daf, in the regards to Isur Halanat Hamet, the prohibition against leaving the body decomposed and not burying it when it's come to the law of burial. Helino lichvodo. If a person left the deceased relative unburied overnight for the sake of his honor. Why? Lehavilo aron vetachrichim. He now needs to go around to purchase a coffin, to go around and to get the shroud and all the things that needs in order to bury properly. So eino over alav. So in meanwhile he's not in violation because he needs to take care of that, so it takes time. So they said, my love. What do you mean by saying that? Lichvodo shel met, you refer it to the honor of the deceased. They said, lo, lichvodo shel chai. That's in honor of the relative of the deceased, the living. So Rashi explained that that's applies again to Harugei Bedin, that people who, as we explained the previous daf, who were executed by the rabbinic court. So they said, "Umishum kvodo shel chai mibeit le'lemet." So a person allowed to delay burial of the deceased in order to honor the living. So he said, "Ein." כי אמר החמנה לא תלין לנבלתו על העץ דומיה לתלוי דאית ביזיון אבל לך כיוון דלית בביזיון לא. So when the Torah said in Deuteronomy 21 that the body should not remain all night upon the trees, that applies to the prohibition only similar person whose body is hung after his death, who suffer a degradation when his corpse is left hanging overnight. But here, since the deceased does not suffer degradation when the funeral is delayed, as it's delayed in order that the burial will be performed with greater dignity, there is no violation of the prohibition and he may be left unburied overnight. Tashma, helino lichvodo leshamea alav ayarot. So he delayed the burial in order to get together people in different villages to hear the funeral, to be partake of that. Le'avilu mekonenot. In those days, they used to bring women that express strongly the act of eulogy. Le'avilu aron v'tachichim, to bring a coffin and all the shra. Eino over alav. So all of that is not in violation of halanat hamet, delay of burial. שכל העושה אינו אלא לכבודו של מת, because all of these actions is basically occupied himself with the burial itself, and it's in honor of the deceased. So it means the whole idea of halana, the delaying of the burial, that it's not considering a violation and it's in honor of the deceased, not in honor of the living. So they said, הכי כאמר, כל העושה לכבודו של חי, אין בו ביזיון למת. So anyone who do it for the sake of honoring the living does not transgress the prohibition, as there is no degradation of the dead. תשמע, סימן, רבי נתן אומר, סימן יפה למת. רבי נתן said that it's a good sign for the deceased, שנפרעים ממנו לאחר מיתה. When he is punished after the death and does not receive honorable burial or eulogy, as his lack of honor brings his atonements for his sins. מת שלא נספד ולא נקבר, if deceased was not buried, eulogized and buried properly, או שחיה גררתו, or if it's animal moving from one location to another, או שהיו גשמים מזלפים אמיתתו, זהו סימן יפה למת. Or if it was a rain fell on his bear, this is a good sign for the deceased. שמע מינה יקרא דשכבהו שמע מינה. So here we go to the final word, which is the honor of the dead. So that he is deprived of his honor, he achieves atonements for his sins. Shma mina. And when the Gemara repeats twice Shma mina, meaning that's the final words. So here they continued, and as you see all these dynamics and back and forth, to whom, to heart, it shows you that they, when it's all said and done, you can argue, and he said it's both. But anyway, he said, תשמע אלינו לכבודו, אביא לו תרון תכריכים, בנו עובר עליו, מה אליו, לכבודו של מת, לא לכבודו של חי, משום שכבודו של חי מבית למת, אין, תחיה מרחמנו, לא ניתנים אותו על העץ, דומה תלוי דעית בביזיון, אבל אחר כיוון לא בביזיון, לא. As you see that it's going back and forth and back and forth. Anyway, תשמע, הלינו לכבודו לשמע עליו להערות, להביא לו מקונות, להביא לו ארון ותכריכים, אינו עובר עליו שכל העושה, אינו לכבודו של מת. הרי כאמר, כל העושה לכבודו של חי, אין בו ביזיון למת. תשמע, and that's the Rabbi Natan view. But as you see from all these discussions, there is a tshuva for Noda Biyuda in Madura Kama or Achaim, Siman Tetzain. He delivered all this big issue of the what is the living or the deceased, who is more. The Darkei Moshe bring the Magen Avraham in Taf Kuf Kavav, the whole idea of Nefel. There's someone who passed away during the first 30 days of the life. If it's not for the Nefel, not for the baby itself. For example, if a baby was born and then during the 30 days period, which is called Nefel, he passed away and it was Yantiv. So the idea is we have to wait for when Yantiv is over in order to bury it. So the derivative from that, that's the Bet Yosef, Agarot Manmioniot and others, try to say that it's not for, the bottom line is not for the Toelet HaNefel, it's not for the gain of the deceased. Anyway, it's a big, as we see, it's a big write-up in הלכה. לא היו קוברים, וכל כך למה? So it means now we're dealing with the cemetery, that there is a separate section for people. So people who, for example, executed by the Bet Din for the evil act, so you don't bury that person among his family, but you put it in a separate location for Harogei Bet Din. So why all of that? לפי שאין קוברים רשע אצל צדיק. So the whole concept is that you don't bury a wicked next to a righteous man. So obviously those time, the Harogei Bedin, the people who executed by the court, or people who are total evil people, so you cannot bury them with everyone else. Now, the halacha is so. If you see that in your Reda'ah, in 362, they said one who is wicked may not be buried next to the one who is righteous, not even an extremely wicked man next to the less wicked man. Also one who is an average should not be buried next to one who is known for his exceptional piety and righteousness. So it sure is amazing. It's almost saying that the deceased is, beside of not active in their body, they are still, the spirit is still alive. So in the Gilayon Marsha, he said that he talked about someone who go to a missionaries, etc. So he said, I'm just reading the word, he said here, הלומדים אצל מיסיונרים ירחיקו לקוברו יותר מ8 אמות מקרב ישראל כשר. על פי מה שכתב הבאר היטב כאן עד סוף הסימן, במנודה להרחיק כדי כן שלא יגעו התפוסות שהיא 4 אמות זה בזה. So basically he said that it should be distance at least 8 cubits. And the שאלות ותשובות בצל החוכמה said that in the באר היטב did not elaborate, did not express these rules, these din. And he said that it's based in Gemara in Brachot, page 18, Gemara in Sotah, 44. But he brings the Sefer Hasidim in Taf Shin Zayin, that he said that Menudeh Bechorem HaKeilot, if someone was excommunicated by the community, היו מרחיקים קברו יותר מ8 אמות משאר הקברות. So basically the distance, his burial, more than 8 cubits from others. And Chatam Sofer said in Yoredea Shinem Aleph that Isur Deoraita, הולכים לחומרה. It's very strong for the, you don't bury a righteousness to the wicked. אמר רבי אבא בר חנינא, מניין שהם גוברים רשע אצל צדיק, שנאמר ויהי הם קוברים איש, והנה ראו את הגדוד וישליכו את האיש בקבר אלישע, וילך ויגע האיש בעצמות אלישע ויחיב יעקב מרגליו. So it means, again, this is the Tanakh fascinating story about Elisha, the prophet, that he was died and he buried. And when they taking out the body in order to bury it, they saw a large army force coming from Moab, and so they left the body in a cave and ran for their life. They left that body in the cave that Elisha was buried. So that body, while they did it in Iran, ran and touched the bone of Elisha, and the story of the Tanakh said that it caused him to revivify, to come back to life, and it's not because he was wicked, but it was because he touched the body of Elisha, which again it's fascinating. Some say that it was a Nevi Sheker. The Chatam Sofer was asked a question about a soldier that was found with a lot of trash, with a lot of symbols of other faith group and more, but he was circumcised. Should we bury him as everyone else in a cemetery? And there's a lot of rabbinic response about it. You see, for example, Maharil is a fascinating in Ilchot Smachot. He said that the whole idea of you don't bury the wicked with the righteous, it's, I'm just reading the word, לפי שלהצדיק מגלין רזין מאחורי הפרגות, because the righteous person, they reveal secrets of the other world, the world to come, behind the scenes. ואם יש רשע לידו נמנעים מלגלות לצדיק כדי שלא ישמע רשע. And if it's a next door wicked, they are avoiding from telling the righteous, which means הצדיק מפסיד מזה, which is almost like speaking about living creature. וכתב הים של שלמה, יבמות פרק ג' סימן ט"ז, so there's a book called ים של שלמה who said it clearly, שאותם עשירים שמפזרים ממון רב כדי להיקבר צדיקים, there are some rich people that spend a lot of money, so they want to make sure that they have the honor to be buried next to the righteous. יצא שכרן בהפסדם שאינם רואים לכך הרי הם נענשים. That they lost more than they gained, because if it's not befitting for them, they will be punished for that. So the Or Zarua, you see it also in the Bach, the whole idea that we're very strong with that. It's the Chemed that bring Machloket Aposkim, if we should take the same care of the wicked person or evil person as the other person, and the location of burial. As a matter of fact, that when I was studying with my Chavruta in Israel Yeshiva for many years, I have my Chavruta, Mordechai Shub. We studied together for more than a decade. So he told me a story, if I'm not mistaken, his name is Rabbi Shepsel Kramer, something like that, that they erected a fence around his grave because of that, because of this concept. Anyway, אמר לרב פאפה, ודילמה לאי יקומה והנה פי שניים ברוחך אליי. He asked for double portion. So meaning that again, it's hard for us to explain it without going to Kabbalah, but basically asking to get the double portion of understanding of prophecy, of capability, and how exactly it happened when his touch is born. Anyway, אמר ליחד את תניא, היינו את תניא, על רגליו עמד ולא הלך ולביתו לא הלך. So he said that he did not go to his home. So Rashi identifies the man who was revived after having been cast into the tomb of Elisha as the false prophets who convinced the man of God to eat with him, causing him later to be punished and slain by a lion. Pirkei de Rabbeinu Eliezer identified him as Shalom, son of Tikva, husband of Huldah, the prophetesses. Anyway, it's a few versions. What exactly? The key is that you don't bury one righteous next to the wicked. אלא והנה פי שניים, היכם אשכחת לה דאחיה. So it's really the blessing come true. אמר רבי יוחנן שריפא צרעת נעמן. So you see in the book of Kings, second book of Kings, chapter 5, how Elisha have the Aramean minister of defense, or the chief of the forces, Naaman, have a leprosy, and Elisha basically revivified him. She'ish kula kemet, because it's equivalent to death. Dechtiv al nati kemet. When Moshe Rabbeinu saw his sister Miriam, the prophetess, after speaking Lashon Hara against him, afflicted with the leprosy, he prayed and he said in the book of Bamidbar, chapter 12, Al na tehi kemet, which is, do not have her like a dead, so do not let be as one dead. So we treated someone who's carried tzarat, who carried leprosy, like a dead person. So if the prophet Elisha was able to heal Naaman from his leprosy, from his tzarat, is like making him alive. וכשם שאין קוברים רשע אצל צדיק, כך אין קוברים רשע חמור אצל רשע קל. This is fascinating. The same way that we do not bury a wicked person next to a righteous man, so too an extremely wicked man, one who's committed a grave offense, is not buried next to a less wicked man, one who's committed a less severe offense. So they ask a question, if that's the case, וליתקון ארבע קברות, so let us do 4 different grave sites, one for each of the different modes of judicial execution. So the Gemara said, Shnei kvarot, Gemara gmira lei. That's halacha Moshe P, which is very important. We have this tradition that there are 2 grave sites for those executed by the court, not more than that. So as we said, nowadays we have a cemetery, we have a fence, and we have people who behind the fence in some painful cases. Amar Gula. Here we bring a ruling that it's connected to our Mishnah. Amar Gula, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Achal chelev v'ifrish korban. If a person have violated Torah law by eating a forbidden fat or separate an offering for his sin, and he has then become, apostate and mumar, hamir dato v'chazar bo, and then he did teshuvah, hoil v'nidcha yidache, since the offering was rejected or been sacrificed while he was mumar, so it should remain rejected. איתמר נעמי אמר רבי ירמיה, אמר רבי אבאו, אמר רבי יוחנן, אכל חלב והפריש קורבן, נשתתה וחזר ונשתפה ולבנדחי דחי. The same way, if someone was not mentally well and they reject because of his sanity the korban, so since he was rejected, that rejection should remain. וצריכה, why we need both rulings? דאי אשמינן כמה הייתה משום דח ענף שבידיים, אבל אי דממלא קדח המה כי ישן דמי, וישמינן נחה משום דן בידו לחזור, אבל לך בידו לחזור המה לא צריכה. So you need both. One is because maybe we can actively reject themselves automatically, and the other one is because he has the power to retract his mumarut, that he make teshuvah. So therefore you need both. Both halacha, both in both cases. וישמינן נחה משום דן בידו לחזור, אבל לך בידו לחזור המה לא צריכה. אוקיי. אמר רבי יוסף, הפנן המתנינה. היו בקודשים קודשי מזבח ימותו, קודשי בית הבית ייפדו. See, we running out of time. Okay, so let's go faster. ואבינן בעמה ימות, כיוון דהתקטו דהבו לו כפרה ולעסקו לגבוה. כשזו מילה משום דאמרינן, הואיל נדחו ידחו, אמר לה מי סברת מת מתוך רישו אבל לכפרה, מת מתוך רישו לא אבל לכפרה. נתן רב שמעיה, יכול אפילו פרשו אבותיו מדרכי ציבור, התאמת תלמוד לומר בעמיו בעושה מעשה עמיו. אמר לרב מי כמדמת נהרג מתוך רישו למת מתוך רישו, מת מתוך רישו כיוון דרכי אורחי כמית לא אבל לכפרה, נהרג מתוך רישו כיוון לאורחי מית אבל לכפרה. So basically the notion here, how a person died, תדע דכתיב מזמור לאסף אלוהים באו בגויים מנחלתך תימו לך על קודשך נתנו לבלעת עבדיך מאכל לעוף השמיים בשר חזירה לאכלתו הארץ. That's a פסוקים in Psalm 79. מהי עבדיך ומהי חסידיך, לאו חסידיך חסידיך ממש, עבדיך הנח דמחי ודינה מעיקרה וכיוון נקטו לעיקר לעבדיך, because they killed, they are called your servants. So it means that one who committed the sin was executed, achieve atonement even without repentance. So here, because we try to compare the two, Amar Abaye Mika Medamet, how can you compare the two? My brother-in-law in his book Daf al Daf, Rav Mandelbaum, he brought a question from Rab Shaul Moshe Mivrishov. He says, Amai lo nakid ve'emir dato v'asa tshuva, אך אם יעשה תשובה, אם כן נהיה למפרע כזכויות, ואזי לא ייפסל. So he bring a Rambam, the whole idea of what exactly type of tshuva the person made. Because this, the Tehillim, Mizmor LaAsaf, he bring also the Rema in Yoredei Shin Mem. He says, הרגיל לעשות עבירה, if he's someone who's constantly makes sins, and then he repents, and then he backed out, and then he repents, and then he backed out, and then he repents. So he said, En korim len mitamim lav. You don't do the funeral service the same as everyone else. So he explained here, for example, if someone is goes some form of idol worshipping, and then he retrieve it and he's do teshuvah, and then he changed his mind and he backed out. So there are people like that that constantly feel bad. The Balatanya mentioned that. He says, Reshaim Elohim Charata. There's a concept that it's not the highest level of teshuvah. So here's the big question, how you treated in the case of Mumar Le'Te'avon, Mumar Le'Achis. Anyway, you're welcome to read more in my brother-in-law book. 47b, הרוגי מלכות להרוגי בדין, הרוגי מלכות כיוון דלא בדין כמיקטה להבלו כפרה, הרוגי בדין כיוון דבדין כמיקטה להבלו כפרה. So here they try to differentiate between if it's the essence, the עצם הקבורה, is the atonement, is the כפרה or not. תדע, should know a general rule. דתנן לא היו קוברים אותו בקברות אבותיו. They don't bury him, the executed transgressor, in the ancestral burial plot. ויסגלתך כיוון דאיקטו להבלו כפרה לקברו. So he said מיתה וקבורה באינן. I wish to have more time. Anyway. מוטיב רבדה ברבא, לא היו מתאבלים אל העוננין, שאין עניות אלא בלב. ויסגלתך כיוון דאיקבו אבל הוא כפרה לאבלו. So he said, באילן נעם עיכול בשר, די כנעם דקטן נתקל הבשר ונקטין את העצמות וקוראים אותם מקומם שמאמינה. Now we talk about aveilut. So, you know what? Because we running out of time, I'd rather start this subject the next shiur, the Ilchot Avelut.